topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV, where we bring you educational information from top local experts in the fields of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Now sit back and listen to experts in family law, association law, hearing loss, business brokers, home care, along with many other topics. Now here are your hosts, Steve-O and Sophia.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome to another Ask the Expert show where we bring you the top experts in the field of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. We do about 60 shows a month, which is a lot of shows to do. But we have a few shows that are like really some of my favorites. They're such easy shows to do, but most importantly, they're so important. And our estate planning show with attorney Julia Dean is probably one of my favorite shows. And I'm so glad, we are so blessed that we have her. I want to introduce you to Miss Julia Dean. She's in Sugar Land, Texas, and she's with us twice every month. And we get so many letters from our listeners and viewers telling us how much they enjoy and appreciate this show. Good afternoon, attorney.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Steve. Appreciate it.
I love doing the show with you. And I think I told you on our last show, estate planning is so important. And if you don't plan, it could cause so many troubles down the road. So today we're going to talk about the top 5 estate planning mistakes. We might only get through number 1, Julia, but
I'll get as far as we can and we'll get it later, right?
There's a lot of things people make a mistake on, but you know, you talk to people and you say, have you done a will yet? And they'll go, no, I haven't done my will yet, but I've got time. And that we're going to see on this show that that's really not the case. Julia, before we get started, tell people about your firm.
Well, Steve, I get the benefit and the privilege of working with families and individuals to help make their lives better by pre-planning for their disability, as well as what happens upon their passing, so their loved ones are taken care of. And so anticipating those issues that may come up and making it as smooth of a road as possible.
You know, it's so sad when you hear a person passed away and didn't do any planning at all. And I think sometimes we think we're indestructible and we're never going to pass away. And we've always got plenty of time to do this. But it's really not the case, is it?
No, it's not. And, I think procrastination is a big, huge thing because it's not one of those things that has to be done by a certain time, in people's minds, but we can wait too long by putting it off. And we never know when that time will be. So, we really find that the biggest mistake people make is just not planning. And it'd be better to have something in place that it may not be perfect, but at least it's something that can be worked on and improved on later on. But we find that 68% percentages of Americans do not have even a will in place. And that means only 32% do. And that's from AARP and caring.com. They had a survey. That's a lot of people without their will.
Yeah.
That's 2/3 of the people do not have their will. And only 45% of adults 55 and over have some kind of estate plan in place. And the younger adults were looking at 24 to 27%. And so it's just very small. It's only our older adults that are over the age of 72, 81% of them have wills. So they brings up the percentages a little bit, but it's kind of an indictment on all of us that we need to make sure that we're getting our planning in place. So if something happens to us or our loved ones, that we have a plan. Because if we don't, it's a really huge issue.
Julia, first of all, I want to break it down because a lot of people do not know what estate planning is. So you handle probate, guardianship, elder law, special needs. And I got to tell you, Julia, because we've been doing this for several years now, I want people to understand you really do care about people. And I think that's one of the most important things when it comes to estate planning.
Yes, and I think it helps make our firm unique is that we really spend time to get to know our clients, and we care for them and we want them to feel like family. We realize that this is a very intimate area of law. It's dealing with your family, it's dealing with your finances, and there's many areas of law related to estate planning, like the probate and guardianship and elder law and special needs that you talked about. And we do all of that. And the reason we do all of it is because it all intersects. And if you don't know how to do one, you're going to impact the benefit of the other and maybe nullify it. So we want to make sure that it's all coordinating together and is a harmonious plan for our clients.
Well, I want to educate the people. First of all, we're going to be discussing mistakes that people make when it comes to their estate planning. What would you say is the biggest mistake, Julia?
I think the most basic mistake is that people do not have a plan, or kind of the other side of that. They think they have a plan when they really don't. They've gone online, they've done a will, they've done it incorrectly. They don't know they've done it incorrectly, and they have this false sense that they have a will. They think they're part of the 32% that do have a will, and they really aren't. So I think the percentages are really actually less than that, because we see those wills coming in and basically getting thrown out because they are not valid. So not having a will is a huge one, but also having one that's not done correctly. It's always better to invest some to get a estate planning attorney to really look it over, so that we're not having a situation where we're paying so much more on the back end because of the cost of going through an intestate probate, which means we don't have a will because it gets thrown out.
You know, you just mentioned the cost. Everything is going up. Long-term care is going up.
It is.
How is it different now, Julia, than it was, say, 5 or 10 years ago, as to planning?
Well, laws change all the time, and sometimes we get some great opportunities, and as the laws change, and sometimes it's to our detriment. And so if we can plan while things are better, and we can do more, so like right now, while the estate tax exemption is higher, we can do so much more to protect assets and minimize or eliminate taxes than we will be able to in 2026 when the laws revert back. So just, keeping our eye on it, maybe it gets better. Like a few years ago, we got the opportunity in Texas to do dynasty trust planning for now up to 300 years for everything except real estate, which is 100 years. Well, that's amazing. I mean, it's a huge ability to do a credible legacy that we couldn't do before. We just went a life and being plus 21 years, which was a weird rule, but we got it down maybe a generation or two. And that was it. And so now we have an ability to do a whole lot more. So, just being on top of this and being able to put in place things that even if the laws change, now we have the benefit of the old laws that were better for us, or as laws change to be more beneficial to us, we can come in and make those changes as well. But if we have no plan, we're not getting anything except
Right.
what we're thrown out with at the very end, with whatever the law says our errors are. We don't even get to decide where things go, where the law says how they deal with it, which is usually it's not a tax efficient way. It's not a way that would protect anyone, any asset protection or creditor protection. You just get who gets what, and it's outright, and it doesn't really matter unless we petition the court to do more. So, there's definitely a benefit in getting it in place and keeping it up to date.
We just got our first text from a listener who wants to know, how often should you revisit your estate planning?
Good question. I usually recommend every 2 to 3 years to take it out and look at it. And when we do it, we have a confirmation of names and fiduciaries where you can list, it shows your family information, who you've listed in the different roles, whether it's trustee, executor, agent under financial power of attorney, agent under medical power of attorney, who has access to your information under the HIPAA laws, the healthcare privacy laws. So we look at all of that. So that's a really great summary way of just seeing that. And then we usually do a summary of like a trust or a will. So it's an easy way to kind of have a look back on what you did. And so if okay, these people have changed out, we really need somebody new. You can see where they are and change those out. If we have a structure of a plan where maybe we're doing certain kinds of trust planning or charitable gifts or other things that you want to change up, it's an easy way to see it too. But I do recommend either 2 to 3 years, or if anything changes in your family, like your financial situation changes, for better or worse, we want to look at that and make sure we're handling it properly for you. Or you have a life change, a marriage, a divorce, a child, an adopted child. It could be we're heading towards retirement. Maybe we need to do some long-term care. We have a disability. Those are the kinds of things where we need to start looking at your plan. Does it work for you? And as much as, we always try to pre-plan when we're doing that, there's situations that we need to look at again and modify as your situation changes. So I would recommend 2 to 3 years or when a life change happens.
We've talked about this before. So many celebrities that did not have a will.
Yes.
And I guess the first one that comes to my mind is Prince. And tell people why, maybe someone's sitting there right now going, you know what, I don't have much of assets at all. Why should I have a will? Tell people how important a will is.
Yes. If you have anything at all, you should have a will, any asset at all. That's because if we don't, and nothing happens automatically. We kind of think it'll go automatically pass to our spouse and then to our children. That is not the case. It requires a court intervention, which is much more costly than if you have a will. And they appoint an attorney ad litem to investigate who your heirs are. And then the court determines who your heirs are. There's testimony and witnesses. So it's not an easy kind of thing to just transfer something without a will. We have to go through all the court proceeding. And then after that, there has to be some kind of administration where we're transferring things over. And if we have any kind of unusual situation where we may need to do some protection for an heir, it just gets even more and more expensive for them. So it's really important, regardless of the amount that you have, to have a will in place. And there's alternatives to having just a will as a will-based plan. There's trust-based plans too, with kind of a will as a just in case will, just because we never want to leave you without a will, because you don't want to go through court without a will if you can at all avoid it. So, it's better to invest more now and not create more of a problem for your family in the future.
Julie, I think we should just drop the name estate. I think when people see the name estate planning, they think, oh, estate, I have to have a lot of assets. And that just isn't true.
That isn't true. Yes. And you're right. it is somewhat deceiving, it seems like, because people think estate plan very, very wealthy. And that's not the case. It just means any asset, all we need to plan your estate. Even people who have really virtually no assets need to have some planning, and we consider that a part of your estate plan. In your disability plan, and what would happen if you can't make your own medical decisions? What if you can't make your living decisions? What if you can't make any decisions regarding the account that does have a beneficiary designation on it, but no one can get access to it to pay for you during incapacity? So that's all a part of your estate plan. So I think you're right. Let's get rid of plan. Maybe your legacy and disability plan or something instead of your estate plan, but it's really for everyone.
Exactly. We're talking about some of the common reasons why about estate planning, some of the misnomers about it. What are some of the other things that people don't understand about estate planning?
Well, I think one of the mistakes that they make is that they don't update their plan on a regular basis. And that kind of goes in with the question that you asked me before, when should you look at it? So I think people just kind of go ahead and do it. And then they set it aside, tuck it away in a cabinet, never to think about it again. At least bring it out when you can't sleep at night and read through it, and then maybe you'll have a chance to think about, oh, maybe I need to go in and update it. But I do think that is really important, that, when those circumstances change, that we're updating your will to reflect that. Your kids in particular, if you have young kids, the circumstances of your guardians may change over time. And so we do that as a separate document apart from the will or trust. And that's just an easy one then to update. And because, I know when my kids were growing up, I probably changed it 4 or 5 times who I would want to take care of my children, because the person who was going to take care of them, their situation had changed. They were either going through a difficult time medically or a divorce or something else, and it just made it so it wasn't the right place for them. And as the children got older, they had more of a preference on some of that. And so I took that into consideration as well. So some of the things we need to think about when we update our estate.
I'm so in awe of you, Julia, because there are so many things that we need to know about when it comes to estate planning. You have all these things in your head. And the other day I saw a commercial, online estate planning. I went, how did they do anything like that? I think about you when I saw that. I'm going, there's so many different questions that you have to have. And there's so much that goes into it. How do they ever do it online?
Yeah, it's not a good idea. I wouldn't even do, if I was an estate planner myself, I wouldn't do my own. If I was in a different kind of law, I would get an estate planning attorney, just like I do if I need something else, a business attorney. I have business issues, I'm going to go to that business attorney. Or if there is a car accident, I'm going to go to someone who knows how to deal with a car accident, because everyone is an expert in their own area. And if you don't know what you don't know, sometimes then that's the biggest problem of all, is that we don't know what we don't know. And we need to plan for, you need someone who knows all those contingencies and can plan for those beforehand. And so that's what I enjoy, is just, okay, what if, and making the alternate plans and contingencies and the strategy that works with all of those different plans in line with what my client wants, and to the greatest extent possible, while still doing tax planning and asset protection and divorce protection. So there's lots of things that go into it. Most people have no idea. When they come in, it's fun because I get a chance to educate them on these things, and they're blown away by how much actually does really go into it. So that's what my consultations are. It's really educational on this.
What would happen if you don't have a power of attorney?
Oh, yes. Good question. Because without a power of attorney, there's a couple of kinds of powers of attorney. There's a financial power of attorney and a medical power of attorney. But if we didn't have those documents in place, just those basic, then we could be in court getting a guardianship over you if you were incapacitated. So those are just essential documents. There's, of course, the living trust, I think, is better for financial. But at the very least, we want a financial power of attorney, someone to make your financial decisions when you cannot make them, or you can make it effective immediately, someone to help you now. And sometimes people like to do that so that, a spouse or a loved one can assist them, especially if they're dealing with medical issues or they just don't want to deal with it anymore. It allows them to do that. What's really important on the financial side of things is that it be a very robust financial power of attorney that goes into detail and allows for the financial institution to feel a comfort level with honoring that. Because the problem is if they don't honor it, then it's like we don't have one because we're back in court getting a guardianship over you. So I recommend to all my clients, and I would to all our listeners, if you have a power of attorney, make sure you take it to every financial institution that you have to be sure that they're going to honor it. Because if they don't, that risks a guardianship over you, which is very expensive and time-consuming process that nobody should have to go through. It is not fun. And so I would recommend you do that. Make sure they're going to honor that financial power of attorney. And if they want you to sign their own at a financial institution, you have the capacity now to do that. But after you're incapacitated, you don't. And then we're back in court getting a guardianship over you. And on the medical side of things, for the medical power of attorney, that it just usually requires one doctor to decide you can't handle your medical decisions anymore. And then you pre-name someone who can come in and make those decisions. Now, there are certain decisions they cannot make, and those are ones that are very controversial. They cannot voluntarily admit you into a mental institution. They cannot do certain mental health treatments like convulsive treatments or psychosurgeries or abortion. Those decisions are off the table here in Texas. But you can also speak for yourself for some end-of-life documents, and that's either directive to physicians or sometimes called a living will, whether or not you want artificial life support in a terminal or an irreversible condition. So all of these are really important disability planning documents. And I think most people, as a big mistake I see sometimes is being made, is people will have a will that they'll get online or whatever, but they don't think about all the disability planning documents. So not only are they at risk because their will is probably not good, but they don't have the disability planning documents in place. And sometimes maybe that's an unfounded fear of naming someone who will start to do things they shouldn't. And if you have something, if you have that fear, then that shouldn't be the person that you name. And then there's always corporate trustees or other people that could serve in that role instead. So there's alternatives to, having a bad plan, or someone you don't want in there. There's other people who can step in if you don't have that person in place. And sometimes that's the truth. Even for medical decisions, we don't have the right person that can come in and make those decisions for us. So oftentimes we'll look at a geriatric care manager who can come in and make those kind of decisions instead. So don't put off your disability planning because you just don't know who to put there.
How do the hospitals know when it comes to medical about power of attorney? Is there a form you fill out?
So generally you're taking your documents to the hospital. We have a legal vault program where people can just put a card in their wallet and they can give it to them. Or if they don't have capacity, let's say they're in a car accident, they end up in the emergency room, they'll start looking for their ID and health insurance card. So we usually advise them to put it with it so that if they see that, they'll see there's a medical symbol on there. They know what this is, and they go to our website and they can get to their medical documents. So that's a nice benefit that they would have. But unless someone tells them or you have it with you, they wouldn't necessarily know that. So that means the doctor is going to be making those decisions, not your loved ones who you want to make those decisions for you.
So important. Julia, what is guardianship?
So a guardianship is really a relationship that's created and monitored by the court between, if it's a guardianship over you, between yourself and the person who wants to make those decisions over you, which is the guardian. So that might be a spouse or a loved one, maybe an adult child that's coming in to be your guardian. If the court determines that you do not have legal capacity, and there's varying degrees of that, they can determine you're partially incapacitated for certain kinds of things, or it could be a full incapacity. And so that gives certain powers based on what the court determines the level of incapacity is. That is determined by a physician. And so it requires a doctor's report, and will come in, and the court will assess that. There'll be witnesses, there'll be attorney ad litem who's going to be appointed by the court to represent you and what you would want, whether it's good for you or not. And oftentimes the court will also appoint a guardian ad litem to do what's in your best interest. In the Harris County courts, there are court investigators who even investigate the guardianship situation before they even appoint or start the guardianship proceeding. So it's a very time consuming, it's very expensive. We have a lot of attorneys involved. We have the court, we have hearings. And then once it's in place, then we have someone, a guardian of the estate, which is a guardian over your financials, information and making your financial decisions and paying for things for you. And then a guardianship of the person, which is a guardian over your medical decisions and your living and educational decisions. So they're taking care of, between the two, all of your decisions. And those can be different people. They're oftentimes the same people. But as you can imagine, even once it's in place, everything still has to be approved by the court. So it's very time intensive and very costly, because every time we need to maybe sell something or pay something, we have to get court permission. So we'll do an ongoing budget for the year, but anytime that moves or changes, we have to get court permission. If we want to sell something, sell a house, a car, whatever, we have to get permission from the court. Well, that's motions that we prepare, that's a hearing, it could be witnesses, and then we get an order. So it's very cumbersome and time consuming. If we can avoid a guardianship, we're doing you such a huge favor to do that. And that's why planning well is so important, because these are the things people don't think about when they pull something online. If they don't do it right, what they're risking. They're risking a guardianship. They're risking a probate that is much more extensive, or heirship proceeding that may go to people and in ways that we don't want it to.
Julia, I have said this before, you are God sent. He put you in the perfect place. We love doing the show with you. It's so educational and something that people need to know about. The name of the firm is the Dean Law Firm. Give everybody your phone number and your website, Julia.
My phone number is 281-277-3326. And my website is just my name, Julia Dean, and then law after it. So juliadeanlaw.com. That's JuliaDeanLaw.com. So thank you. We'd love to connect up with you.
Julia's with us every other week. Thank you, Julia. Stay blessed, and we'll see you again in 2 weeks.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.
That's attorney Julia Dean of the Dean Law Firm. 281-277-3326. You can go to her website, www.juliadeanlaw.com. She also has a wonderful staff, and they're really into servicing their clients. Well, that's it for us this week. We'll be back with you again next week with more Ask the Experts.
Thanks for tuning in today to the Ask the Experts show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Tune in next week and every week to hear more from our experts on personal injury, insurance, air condition repairs, estate planning, Medicare, and many other topics in the areas of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. See you next week.